Welcome to Neil Francis Lennon, born 25th of June 1971, a great football year. Thistle pumped Celtic 4-1 in the League Cup from Lurgan, Northern Ireland. Welcome, Lenny. A couple of quick questions about your childhood sort of thing. St Michael's Grammar School. School for you, academic, sport-wise, I heard you played Gaelic football. Mm-hmm. Academically at school, how was it? Because I know you're a very bright boy, but how was it?
Yeah, it was okay at school. Yeah, it was quite conscientious. Mm. You know, Mum and Dad sort of pressed upon us that education was important. So, our three sisters, they all did pretty well at school. Went through university, and then I left school at 16 to pursue the football. But it was okay.
And you played Gaelic football before football?
Sort of same time, really. I mean, Lurgan's a big sort of Gaelic community. There's a lot of Gaelic clubs and it's part of the big community sport. So you played it with your club, and then you played it with the school, and then obviously it's sort of in the family because my uncles and my dad all played it as well. So it's sort of very family orientated sport back in those days anyway.
And see, as you got into it, we asked Tom English this. Where's Tom from again? Cork? Limerick. We asked Tom English this, but you got into the kind of late 70s, early 80s. I've got to ask you, the Troubles, did it impact family life? Did it impact sport life?
Yeah, massively, yeah.
Because that had been right at the...
So my first recollection of growing up was we lived in the high street in Lurgan, and a lot of times you were evacuated from the house, because there was a bomb scare up the town. I remember on a Saturday, my mum would always make stew, and big pot of stew, and Dad come in from like running about and I was starving, and my sister's bringing a pot of stew over to the table, and boom, bomb goes off up the town, and she drops the stew, and I was more annoyed about her dropping the stew than actually the bomb going off. And then we moved to a housing estate called Tignavan, and then it was about 11 or 12 when hunger strike started, and that was really tense at the time. People, in our community anyway, very, very angry about the way things were being dealt with, and there was a lot of trouble, yeah. So
it must just have been I try to think, because Peter's wife Michelle kind of lived through that as well. For mums and dads, I mean, I think of the worries I've got. My own son without troubles, without with the troubles in Ireland. For mums and dads with kids, it must have been brutal.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back now, mum and dad had 4 kids and didn't have a lot of money, but they gave us the best of everything that they possibly could, Coley. And then in the backdrop of that is this sort of going on, in the background. Obviously, there was still a community feeling though. You could leave your doors open. You could sort of go next door to the neighbours and play out on the streets and that. Which you probably can't do now, 30 or 40 years later. But yeah, it must. When I look back, with a huge amount of pride on the upbringing that my mum and dad did give me under such trying circumstances.
It must have been. And let's get into the Fitba. Now, you joined Lurgan Celtic. After that, you went to Glenavon. How Irish football then is probably very different as just now. How long did you stay at Glenavon? A year? Or?
I was training with Glenavon, then I went away on trials for a while, and then I came back and I played for Glenavon. I actually went to Motherwell when I was there for 3 or 4 months, but I got moved from digs to digs to digs, and I was really homesick, couldn't settle. So I came home, restarted my education again at A levels. And then I was at that in between that time I was playing for Glenavon, and I got into the first team. Only played 3 or 4 games, and then Man City came in because they wanted me in the summer. I chose Motherwell over Man City because I felt there might have been a better pathway with Motherwell, but it turned out it didn't work out. Came back, Man City said, "Look, there's still a space available. We'd like you to come over." And then
Man City very, very different from what it is now.
Oh yeah. But it was traditionally...
They were in the second division?
They were in the championship then, yeah. But they were a massive club, like Main Road, big stadium. It was YTS in those days, your apprenticeship. A mix of like young and senior players. Mel Meachin was the manager, and then, first season they did okay, and then second season Mel got them up into the Premier League.
And was it that you were only there a couple of years, and is that right, a couple of years?
3.
3 years. And then you got to move to, and I'm thinking this is where you really started to learn the game in terms of your style of play, which we'll go into in a while. So you went to Crewe, Is this where you started really learning about the game in a first-team environment?
I learned, well, in the first team environment for sure, but the education I got at Man City was priceless. Yeah. So my two youth team coaches were Tony Book and Glenn Pardo. So Tony Book was
City
back
legend.
in the 60s, you know, when City were big. And Glenn, they both played in the team that won the league, won the Cup Winners' Cup, won the League Cup. So the education they gave me in 2 or 3 years was incredible. And that, they gave me the platform. I was really disappointed to leave City because I was doing quite well, I thought. Mel Meachin had left, Hard Kendall came in. And I really enjoyed like playing under him or training under him, but for some reason he didn't fancy me.
Did you leave for a transfer fee, or did you leave just with a view to, you were ready to play first-team football?
I was released, right? So I had to go and that was devastating at that age. You're thinking, God,
tell me about it. I know.
You know, you're thinking, do I have to go home and start over again? So fortunately, there were scouts watching me play for City's reserves, and you know, one of the teams was Crewe. Crewe and Port Vale were in for me. I spoke to the guy John Rudge, he was a legend of Port Vale, the manager, and then I spoke to Dario, and thankfully I chose Crewe.
So Dario Grady, I mean, you were amazed, 36 years. Football coach at the same place. I mean, what football-wise, you kind of invented that club, didn't you? Football-wise, what was he like?
I felt he was way ahead of his years, Collie, right? So we look at analysis now, and we look at nutrition now. He was doing all that in the early 90s. You know, he would go away and look at other clubs. You know, Ajax, for example, the academy that they had there. You know, and what he would do, he'd go around all the Northwest, you know, look at players that were being released from United, Liverpool, Everton, Man City, you know, and try and recruit them in and then develop young players and sell them on. And then obviously educate you on, you know, coaching. He was a great coach, did a lot of shape, did a lot of different things. Like he brought in 3-5-2. You know, we played 3-5-2 for a long time, and it was more sort of habitual teams playing with back four. Yeah. He was just, you know, really, really good. He was really solid. We actually played Red Star Belgrade. Do you remember them?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Red Star Belgrade came and toured England, and the Prozanecki, Darko Panchev, what an education was playing against them. They beat us 4-0, it could have been 24. And he goes, right, I want to play like that. I want to play, you know, he thought to himself, like, this is the way forward. Anyway, Red Star went on to win the Champions League at the end of that season. We got relegated. So
they beat somebody in penalties, Red Star Belgrade, in the final. Was it Barcelona?
It was.
I think they beat Barcelona.
Was Marseille.
Was it Marseille?
Anyway, he wasn't bothered about being relegated. It was just, you know, developing players' style of play. I got diagnosed with having
a spine injury,
stress fracture on my back.
Did that ever threaten the whole career?
Oh yeah, that was devastating. So I go to see I was starting to get like pains in my groin and in the back of my hamstrings, and the physios said, look, you need to go and we'll get you to see a specialist. So I went to see a specialist. He said, look, you're going to need surgery on your back, and I'm thinking, right, okay, 4 to 6 weeks. You know, he goes, no. He goes, this is 18 months. Jesus. So 18 months, the year before you've been released, you come in here, you're starting your career over again, and it's just a massive blow. Like 18 months is a lifetime for you.
Well, absolutely, at that stage of development as well. What would you have been in 2021?
20, yeah. So that really, and the clubs looking at me again, you know, there was talk of Liverpool coming to look at me, blah, 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 and that had to be all part. So it was a massive decision to have the operation because...
Could it have went either way, Lenny?
Yeah. And basically, what the specialist said, look, if you don't have this, you know, you could be finished at 22. It'll just, the fracture will get bigger and, you know, it'll affect you more. So I took a massive risk on it. I didn't think I had any other choice, really. On my 20th birthday, I'm laying in a hospital bed, you know, my back sort of cut open. Yeah. Anyway, it was a long process back. Eventually, I got playing again, and I played against Peter Reid's brother. You know Peter Reid, great England player. Yeah. He's a brother called Sean Reid, and Sean was like Peter, he had legs like that. He's playing for Rochdale. About 2-3 games. No, it might have been my first game. It was a Friday night, you know, lashing down, you know, porta cabins for changing rooms and that, Scotland. And Sean, after about 5 minutes, just put me right up in the air, and I landed on my back. And I lay there for about 20 seconds, I went, I'm all right. And that was it. Just.
So in hindsight, the best thing that could have happened?
Yeah, just got on with it then after that, you know. And then year, season on season, I got better and better to the point where, got to move to Leicester.
And at that point, obviously, there was the kind of scandal. I know you had two friends who, Andy Woodland, Steve Walters, the Barry Bennell, all that kind of nonsense.
We
which I don't want to touch on too much because
no,
it's so horrid.
I mean, I was Andy Woodward's best man at his first wedding, and I knew nothing about it. There was 4 of us in a car. We travelled from Manchester to Crewe every day. It was myself, a young lad called Gareth Wally, Steve Garvey, and Andy. And every day we would travel in, and we were friends for a long time. And all this came out 30 years later, and I had no idea. The big surprise was Steve Walters as well, because Steve was like really highly thought of. He was in the England under 15s, which was massive for Crewe, as you can imagine. And his mum and dad and family had moved up from Plymouth to Crewe, and he was basically building things around Steve, And then his sort of career sort of fell off a cliff after 4 or 5 years.
It'd be incredibly hard to talk about things like that.
It must have been.
It's a bit like you with
it's
your depression thing.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. When I look back on it now, it's heartbreaking to think that they couldn't talk to me about it, or they couldn't, and it would have been. I don't know. There for the grace of God, go I. But Bennell, being the master manipulator that he was, ended up going out behind his sister. So he's sitting at the dinner table with his mum and dad, sitting next to the sister and sitting opposite Andy, and that's the type of guy this guy was. I mean, there was talk and rumours, but there was never any real evidence, and then it all came out in the wash sort of 15, 20 years later. It's horrific.
Well, I mean, things have improved in terms of people can talk about it now, I suppose, and get help with it, but in those days it must have been having to keep that inside. It kind of beggars belief. You went to Leicester City, 2 League Cup wins. You met somebody who I would imagine is very important in your career. Was it a huge step up in terms of playing in the Premier? I mean, did you go as a Premier League player, or did you get promoted from the Champion, League, whatever it was?
So I signed. It's 30 years this month.
Right.
I signed for Leicester, February '96, and it was a bit of a struggle to start with for Martin, and a lot of fans wanted him out. And
that's the same as most. Everybody's felt
honestly,
that.
mate.
I know.
Like the pitch demonstrations, and I'd only been there for 6 or 7 games, and he had convinced me to go there. I could have went to Coventry in the Premier League with Ron Atkinson. But the best thing ever happened to me was Martin coming to my house that night and talking me out of it. Anyway, started off really up and down, and then all of a sudden we go on this run from mid-March to the playoffs. We get in on the last day of the playoffs in 6th position, and then we beat Stoke, and then we beat Palace in the final. So I've gone from League One in February to Premier League in August, and it was just the big wide world that opened up. I feel like it was amazing. That playoff final against Palace, Steve Claridge scored the winner in the 120th minute.
Guy with the socks at his ankles.
He was a good player.
Played about 800 games or something.
Played great with his back to goal, and he was Martin's kind of guy, and he scored really important goals for us. So yeah, that was a massive day in my life. It was brilliant.
What is Martin's type of guy? Not as a person, not just as a player.
Well, one with a sense of humour, I think, personality, being able to, I mean, he could manage everyone, like all different types. Sutton was like, he had a dark humour about him, but he understood it. Like I was a bit gregarious, like, a night out, he'd be able to manage me. Henrik was Henrik, he could get us all together and make us sort of feel good about ourselves. But it didn't mean to say, his man management was great, but he knew the game as well. Wow. So what I mean by his type of player, there was a sort of template that he had, like, a bit like Cloughie, 2 centre-halves who could defend and head the ball.
Simplify things.
Yeah, a dog in midfield to get the ball back, i.e. me, Cloughie or John McGovern or somebody like that. And then a big centre-forward who could take the ball in, Bertels, for example, with Cloughie. And then with Martin, you had Heskey, you had Claridge, you had Sutton, you had Hartson. When he went to Villa, you had John Carew, always a pivot.
So he had a template.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I think that sort of was passed. I think he learned that from Cloughie, and it stood him in good stead for a long, long time. He could be ruthless. He could go through you like a hot knife through butter. I've had some real goings over from him at times, but a lot of times, like, he made you feel like the best player in the world. We had Robbo, God rest his soul, Steve Walford. So he always had good staff with him who, we wouldn't see Martin like Monday to Thursday, you know.
Yeah.
And I worked that out after a while because impact.
Yeah.
As soon as you walked into the ring, oh,
Yeah.
he's here, or oh fuck, he's here. But he always had presence. You know, he'd leave Robbo and Wally to do the day-to-day
That
stuff.
was I'm going to say. There was the same at Celtic with John Robertson
Yeah.
and Steve Walford, wasn't it?
Yeah, do day-to-day stuff. And so, and again, the whole for psychology of the game. So I'll give you an example. We're going to, it might have been Liverpool away or Man United away, but about 6-7 weeks into the Premier League. And, you know, I'd come from Crewe where I was talking about, you know, a lot of shape and this, that and the other. And every Friday, Collie, we split the squad up, young v old.
I do young v old, have it done all my
One
time.
touch, two touch, all in, right? Every Friday, without fail, and then on the bus. So after the game, after I finished training, and Robbo had been playing, he's there with a fag and then the brace on. I said, Robbo, why do we not, we're playing like Liverpool tomorrow, why do we not do a bit of shape or a bit of set plays? And he started laughing at me. And he called, Wally, come here to hear this. Calls Wally over, what is it, Lennon? Why do we not do like set plays or shape and that? He said, oh, fuck off. I said, what? What is it? And John Robertson called me Paddy. He says, Paddy, how old are you? I said, I'm 25. He said, if you don't know the game at 25, you'll never know the game. Now fuck off, get on the bus. And whoever we were playing, we won 1-0 the next day. Do you know what I mean? So again, I stood there for about 10-15 seconds, taking in what he had said. And you're right. They just filled you with confidence, but they also filled you with we brought you here for a reason. Just do what you're good at. You don't. I'm not saying they didn't coach us. They managed this, Collie. They managed, and they knew what buttons to press.
Was that Clough that was coming through?
100%, no doubt about it. Simplicity, but there was always a thought to what he was doing. There was always a thought to training. So when you did like a possession game in training, there was a principle to it, maybe to switch the play. And when you're doing it in small areas and you get it, then the whole thing opens up on a bigger pitch and you see the pictures so much better. And some players get it and some players don't. The good players get it.
Well, on to Celtic, 5.75 million for a wee guy for Lurgan, goodness me. I'll go into your honours after, but during that period it was 5 Premier titles, 4 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups. I mentioned this to you, we were having a coffee. In my time, I started in Scottish football in 1982. That team's the best team, in my opinion, that I've known in Scottish football. And I've said it many times, said it in the radio, said it in the BBC. Did you realise you were so good? Do you agree with that, first of all?
I don't know.
Do you realise you were so good at the time?
Did we realise you were so good at the time? Probably not, because we were up against a really good Rangers side.
Rangers team, yeah.
What did you make of the 92 Rangers team?
Who was in that?
Coisty and Haitley and...
the team that beat Leeds United?
Aye.
Yeah, good side. I thought they were short of that Celtic team.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
See, I've never played against them, so I always felt that they were right. I used to watch them in the Champions League. I really like John Brown as well on that team.
John Brown is the best non-cap player I've ever known. Kevin McAllister close, but I've always said it to Bomber.
I used to watch them like in that campaign and thought, you know, Coisty and all them guys would get the headlines, but I thought John was really, really good.
There was a really good Rangers team. There was one Trevor Stephen was in before the first time round before he went to Marseille. But anyway,
that's a huge compliment you're giving our team there. So I think Martin's remit was to come up and, you know, put a challenge in. I don't think even he envisaged how well the start would go.
The first game was 6-2, was it?
Yeah, but then the second game was 5-1 at Ibrox, and that's when I got the call to come up after that, because he wanted me. Lambo got an injury. He was short in midfield.
Was that the Ray Wilkins volley?
No, it was Barry Ferguson opened the scoring in that one, didn't he? No, I never played against Wilkins. It was Tugay and Reina and Alberts and all these guys.
I'm forgetting I'm a wee bit older.
But so yeah, I mean, once I got a foothold in the you know, I basically started my debuts at Dundee, and thought, yeah, we've got a right good team here. Moravchik, thought, God, I've never seen anyone like him before. He's really good. Mialbi was a real good player. Lambo obviously was class, and Petrov, you know, I'd never seen him before, so he was a good player. But then I played against Tomo, Sutty, you know, I played against boys who played in the Premier League, and then the icing on the cake was Henrik, like, you know.
I always thought Sutton was really underrated.
Sutty was brilliant. Sutty was.
Remember playing it? He played centre back against us once.
Yeah, but Sutty, like, was so much football intelligence. His link-up play, but he was a dream for a midfield player. You know, the ball would come to you and just go bop, wrap it into his feet. He was always available. He'd always take it in. He'd always link the play. And he was a real good finisher. He was really good in the air as well. Just a real high football intelligence, and obviously him and Henrik dovetailed really, really well. But, you know, I mean, he just built this quality side with a real strong mentality that came from him. And we were powerful. You know, we were big.
Oh, I remember the back three.
Yeah, we were big and athletic, and then we had football in the team. And again, the dog, me get the ball back. All he ever said to me was get the ball back and give it to him. And if he loses it, get the ball back and give it to him again. That's your job. And that was fine, you know. And then Henrik and Sutty and Lubo and all these great players would do their thing.
And was the Seville journey as magical as everybody makes out? Or are you part of the same as Martin O'Neill and Henrik Larsson? All that whole journey meant was getting beat in the final?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that says it all about that team, I suppose.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, like, I've never watched the final, and I probably never will, because I know the outcome. But I mean, there were some great moments. Anfield was very, very special, Collie. For me, that was a real sort of vindication of that team. Because in the first leg we drew 1 each we'd beaten Blackburn, who were going well at the time.
I've got a question about that.
Right, so the first game was 1 each, and then obviously we're being written off, and then we go down there and we played great. And obviously having played in England, you know, it meant a little bit more as well, you know. I used to say to my mates, look, in England, we've got a real good team here. I used to say to them, aye, whatever, Lenny. And then we come down and...
They don't believe it.
That's what I mean. And then all of a sudden everyone went, oh, they're a really good team here, like, you know. So that was real sort of indicate. And then it meant so much to the supporters at the time as well. But losing the final, like, against the top team, soaring one.
Memories of the Liverpool game. I'm sitting in the Western Baths with a young lad called Gallagher Lennon. Fine young boy, your lad. And he was telling me a story. You sat him down, this must have been the last year, to watch the Liverpool game, he said. And he said, you stopped it at the start and said, Gallagher, how many times do you think I gave the ball away in this game? I think Gal said to me, he said, I'll say 7 or 8. And you stopped it again in the 89th minute. Do you remember this?
No, I remember having the chat with him, yeah.
And you hadn't given it away once. and Gallagher was there watching it. I think at that point he recognised you weren't a bad player.
Well, that was the point. Just basically, your dad's not bad. To be fair, I think it's the only time I've ever showed him any sort of footage of me playing, because he's enough to contend with me being his father, like, you know what I mean?
Well, he's turned out all right.
He's done okay,
to you, son. So, from there we went to Lenny the Gaffer. How did the first spell? I mean, I read a bit of it, but it's quite inconclusive. How did the first spell at Celtic happen? What was the process that got you the job?
Well,
the big job, obviously.
I was basically finishing my career at Wickham, and unfortunately Tommy Burns wasn't very well at the time, and Gordon Strachan rang me and said, look, would you come up and help out with the coaching of the first team? And I said, yeah, of course I would, because I'm just seeing out my days at Wickham, like, you know, I was done. So that came about. They won the league at the end of the season. Gordon kept me on for another year. Then he left at the end of that, having had a brilliant spell as manager. And then Tony Mowbray came in, and I went back to take the development. The club wanted me to stay on, so I took the development team. Really enjoyed that. That spell, and then Tony didn't work out for Tony, and he got pushed. Well, he got asked to leave basically, or resigned, and then I came in and you know, finished off the season. Did I want the job? Yeah. Did I think I was ready for the job? Yeah. If I was talking to my 38-year-old self now, I would go, "What are you doing? You know, what are you doing? Are you mad?" So
it's a tight thing if you go offered. You can't really
say
no. You can't think I'm not.
Do you want, Collie? You don't want to die wondering, do you?
No, absolutely.
You know, but the good thing about that was I'd been a player, I'd been a captain, I was back in the building, I knew the whole culture, the whole environment of the club. So a lot of things worked in my favour that wouldn't for maybe somebody coming from the outside in. I knew all the players, Brownie, and I knew them all, and I knew how they worked, and I knew the ethos of the club and what winning meant. So I got the job. 2 games in, we win the first 2 games, then we lose the semi-final to Ross County, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, it might be gone. And I came out and lambasted the players because I was interim manager, so I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And I felt that the players had really shortchanged the club and the punters. And then we go and win all the rest of the games in the league that season, and eventually the club gave me the job, which must have been a big decision for them, looking back on it. So the remit was got to build a younger team.
You had to rip it up, really, didn't you?
Yeah, sort of get some resaleable value in the players and be successful at the same time.
I mean, you're talking about what you're ready for. I remember Moisey saying to me, just like you said, it's exactly like you said. Moisey said to me, when he got offered the Man United job, he was ready for it, but he knew it was the wrong time. He knew following Sir Alex would have been an absolute nightmare. But how can he say no? You
don't know, do you?
No.
So Mark McGee always said, he gave me a brilliant bit of advice. There was a few clubs like, I'd sort of been asked to do an interview with a club, and I said to Mark, no, I turned it down. I don't know if I'm ready. He goes, Lenny, you never know if you're ready. You just don't know if you're ready.
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Some people think that they know they're ready and they're not. And some people don't think they know they're ready, but they probably are. So you just got to, take it as it comes.
I mean, that spell was 3 league titles, 2 Scottish Cups, 2 group stage in the Champions League. Obviously, the famous night against Barcelona, which is well documented. What was after winning I think you won the cup final against the Pars. What was your reasons for leaving at that point?
I was tired.
Yeah.
I was running out of energy. There was no Rangers. There was no challenge in the league, and the club was sort of, cutting the squad a little bit as well. And they wanted me to change my backroom team, and I just felt it's a good time to go. 4 years, and I was still young and I wanted a break, Holly, to tell you the truth. So I felt like I wasn't getting what I wanted out of it anymore. So it was time for 4 years at Celtics.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's plenty.
For the first season you were at Hibs, I was at Ayr and we were in the same league. But see what you did at Hibs. Now I think the second year, 4th, getting European Cup, that was that's as good a Hibs size as been for many, many years. Was this a reminder to people? You know how quickly people forget what you can do?
Yeah.
Was this a reminder to people what you can do? Because you ran away with the championship, then you finished 4th European qualification with a right good team.
You see, I've never followed the crowd, Collie, right? I've always been my own man. I don't listen to what other people think of me. I don't listen to, because there's no reality in writing people off after one bad season. There's no reality in writing a player off, after 2 or 3 games. And this is what people do these days. They just write them off so quickly. I don't listen to people. So I felt with Hibs as a big club. I watched them a lot because they couldn't get out of the championship, even though they had a real good squad of players and they'd won the cup. So I felt, it's a big club, it would suit me, suit my personality. If I bring a couple of players in, just to deal with the physicality of the championship, I think we'd get out of it okay. So we did that. My first day of training at East Means, I thought, God, we've got a really good team here, really good talent. And then getting out of the championship was the sole focus. You bring in Grant Holt, you bring in Marciano, the goalkeeper. So you got a good spine of the team, and then you got the McGinns, you got Dylan McGeoch, you got good footballers, Jason Cummings, and I thought we'd be okay, and we were. And then the second season, I felt what we had with good footballers, that when they take the step up, they'll be even better because they're playing against good footballing teams then. And they flourished. We got 67 points, which is a record for Hibs, but we only finished 4th. That's how good the league was that year. So I really enjoyed that season. And then selling McGinn, when you sell a player of that ilk, the whole sort of half the crux of the team goes.
Writing people off after 2 or 3 games. Do you not think, particularly in management now, the reverse of that is people are saying somebody's a magnificent manager when they've managed for 20 games?
Yeah, 100%. And I stay out of those debates, right? Because I'm thinking, let it run. Let's see what this. If this guy is as good as he thinks or says or people say is, let's see it. And then if he moves on to a bigger club, let's see how he handles the scrutiny, the pressure, the analysis, and this, that, and the other.
I always think 300-400 games in you can judge.
100%.
So John McGinn, I've got a question. John McGinn, I'll mention Lewis Ferguson. Why do you think? I think it's snobbery. I'm not sure. Why do you think John McGinn didn't go to Celtic? Why do you think Lewis Ferguson didn't go to Rangers? And there's another 5-6 examples of Scottish players that have went elsewhere that the bigger clubs in Scotland should have taken.
The problem with the bigger clubs now is, and it's a different problem, is that the big clubs come and snatch them earlier. People say, well, you're not producing players. Well, Billy Gilmore went to Chelsea. Ben Doak went to Liverpool.
There's been a few recently.
You know, when I was at Celtic the second time, Morrison and Hepburn went to Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes when you're trying to keep kids in the building that they want to go to the bigger clubs or perceived bigger clubs earlier. So I do have a certain sympathy with, you know, the clubs here, but when you've got one right in front of your face, like, you know, a Lennon Miller or somebody like that, you know, maybe they don't think he's good enough, I don't know. The proof will be in the pudding, but I think Lewis Ferguson would walk into both teams.
I mentioned those two because of the McGinn.
No, you're right.
Behind, you know, and the Ferguson connection
And
with
by the way,
Rangers,
John went to Villa winning the championship as well. You know, it wasn't as if they were in the Premier League. But I mean, what a player he was.
It's worked out well enough for him.
Oh, half.
So I return to the hoops. First of all, how did it come about?
Well, Brendan left, and I'd left Hibs under real strange circumstances.
I was going to ask you about that Leanne Dempsey. I'm not really sure.
For me, I done nothing wrong. Leanne wanted to do an investigation into what, I don't know. So there was an investigation. There was nothing there. But by that time, she had backed the wrong horse as far as I was concerned. There was no going back. So got my payoff from Hibs. They put a statement out saying there was no wrongdoing. Why it happened, I don't know.
It's a strange one now.
Very. Anyway, then 2 weeks later, you know, Brendan, I was doing a bit of media work and I got a call. Brendan went to Leicester and Peter Lawwell rang me and said, will you come in and take the job at the end of the season? I said, of course. And that was pressure, you know, because Brendan was faultless with Brendan. He won every trophy, so he had to maintain that. Anything else was failure, you know. That was really, and it's not your team. And we got over the line, you know. That was, you know, big sort of.
Was that the treble?
That was the third one. Yeah, we beat Hearts in the final. The football wasn't great, you know. I'm sort of, this team was, you know, they'd done everything, and I had a lot of sympathy for them in terms of wanting to go and do something else with their careers, you know, because they'd done everything that they wanted to do domestically. So yeah, that was a big achievement, getting over the line, and then going into the following season.
Another treble.
We were doing really well, Collie, and then the lockdown came. We were flying at that
13
stage.
13 points clear, though,
flying, you know, and we were in the semi-final. We'd already won the League Cup, albeit we were very fortunate to win the League Cup that day because Rangers under Stephen had played great that day. And then they beat us a couple of weeks later at the end of the year, 2-1 at Celtic Park, and then you're thinking there's a fight on here. But after the turn of the year, we were just relentless, like, you know, we were murdering teams 3, 4, 5s. And then we were going to play Rangers again on St Patrick's Day, and the league got called, everything got shut down on the 15th. And from then on, things for me just went that way.
You've just touched on that season. See, in your last year, I mean, you won 2 league titles, 2 Scottish Cups and a League Cup. How did you feel with some of the fan protests?
Really disappointed. Really disappointed.
After what you'd done?
Yeah. Really hurt. And after all I'd done, like not just as a manager, but as a player as well. You know, when I think back on...
I totally understand that.
When I think back, Collie, on what the fans were like when I first came up here, they were brilliant. You'd have gone anywhere with them. You know, I used to talk to my friends in England about the support is amazing, and used to be so excited about going down and playing Blackburn and playing Liverpool with the fans, and it was a big celebration, and they came in their thousands. The modern day supporter seem angry all the time. You know, they're never happy. They're going after the board, they're going after the managers, they're going after the players. Sometimes they're in a no-win situation, and the culture and the vibe around the Celtic fan has changed a lot in that 25 years.
Social media, big part
That's
of that?
a huge part of it, yeah. Because basically you can say what you want.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a few drinks and have a go with somebody. I'm not on social media, so
me.
it doesn't affect my life at all. But it will affect some people, and it's horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
Do you think there's a certain bravery from the Celtic board in doing what they've done with regards to the whole Green Brigade stuff?
No, I think it was a necessity in the end.
Yeah.
You know, because it was toxic. And they have their own agenda, whatever it is, but they're not the same support that they were. And everything's fast food. They turn on the club, they turn on the player. There's an agenda going on against the board that's, you know, been going on, rumbling on for a while. And as soon as there's any adversity within the club, they jump all over it, and they make people out to be something that they're not. You know, I've worked with these people. They're top class people. Yes, they're they're up there to be criticised when things don't go well, but the abuse.
Peter Lawwell cannot
The
get that
abuse.
level of abuse.
It's horrendous.
For his job title, what he did at Celtic.
Demonisation, it's awful, you know, and that's not right. That's not what, for me, the values that I grew up with Celtic are about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people like that.
I'm not just, it's not just Celtic. You know,
No, it's all over.
I look at supporters down the road in England, it's all fast food. You know, it's like a shiny new toy. They get a manager and he's a shiny new toy. After a couple of months, I don't like him. I want a new one in.
The ones that feel like that, I think it's a societal thing. I think it's the same in society. They're always the loudest ones. There's an awful lot of people that aren't like that, but they're not loud. They're just, you know.
No, yeah, it's like a loud minority.
Yeah. After that, you had a spell in Cyprus where you won a trophy.
Loved it.
And Bucharest, Romania, very briefly. I know, mental.
It was really strange.
Good experience, though, particularly the Cyprus one.
Cyprus was amazing.
I remember you at Old Trafford, watching you at Old Trafford.
Cyprus was amazing. I would recommend it to any coach or player to go there for.
The only thing I've heard about Cyprus and Malta and places, maybe wages not always.
Mine was
you find they
bang on, pay up, everything, bonuses, everything. So I think that, you know, they do things a lot better. There's still that air of like a little bit of corruption here and there, like, you know, they do things a little bit differently. But for 8 months, I had a ball. You know, had a good team, won the cup, and then we got into the Europa League. We beat Genk to qualify for the Europa League group stage, and then we got like a Champions League group with
Man United,
Real Sociedad, Man United. So you're going to Sociedad, Collie. It's beautiful. You know, Man United, Old Trafford. Thinking, walking out there, you know, we lose 1-0 in the last minute. It was brilliant. Loved it. So. You know, I have no qualms about going anywhere in the world and coaching because it's just all part of the experience.
Bucharest a bit different, just because it was
so short-lived. Like, you know, we different mentality. The guy who owned the club said, "Look, I want to change the culture." Yeah, fine. He sold it to me. Yeah, fine. We changed the system, changed the professionalism. We had 4 draws and 1 defeat to start with. I said, which was okay. It's not brilliant. It's not disastrous because we're starting out. And then they just decided to change, and I went, fine. Are you going to pay me up? Yeah, okay. All right. If that's the way you want it, it's your call. But again, an experience.
One of the things that I'll ask you about all these things, now, part of the reason is because you're so driven in the touchline, but I've got to say, it's not any more than another 15, 20 managers that I've managed against, driven into it. But, you know, the bullet in the post and the Tynecastle thing, the death threat. Obviously, you're coming out with the depression things, which was totally admirable. The Coisty spat, which when anybody that knows Ewan McCoy, that actually knows Ewan McCoy, just found it funny. You know, do you think that type of thing is, or how you were as a player, influences public perception of you?
Yeah.
Because I do. I have always done, and I've always said it, as Peter, to everybody. I think as well, obviously I'm going on too much here, but the pictures of you as a player with the red hair and snarling and getting about the game, I think that's sometimes perceived and goes on into life, which is bizarre.
Well, there's a familiarity there when people see you all the time in that sort of context. People think they know you. You know, they see you every day, or when you're in the Celtic manager and you're doing interviews and you're angry one set and then you're happy and then you're on the touchline and you're passionate and blah, blah, blah. I think I've mellowed in that aspect over the years, but my energy's still there. But that is totally not the person you are. I get paid. I get paid well to do a job, Collie, and I want to do it as well as I can. And I will not back down to make sure we win a game of football. Walter would have done the same. I know. I'll give you an example. We played the night we beat Barcelona. Charlie Mulgrew asked the kit man coming off the Barcelona kit man coming off the pitch, "Can I get a shirt?" He says, "Yeah, come round after 5 minutes." Charlie leaves our dressing room, goes round to the dressing room of Barcelona, knocks on the door, the kit man opens it, and Fabregas and the goalie, Victor Valdez, are fighting. They're fighting each other on the floor because they lost. And everyone thinks this Barcelona team are a nice, great team. They cut your throat to win a game of football. You know, all these great managers, you know, Fergie, Guardiola, you know, they've got an edge. Klopp, all have an edge. And if you don't have the edge, then you might do things a little bit differently. I would say Ancelotti is mellow, but I think he has an edge. The Italians, you know, go about their business.
I don't think that edge merits some of the things that you've been through, though.
No, No, of course it doesn't. No, I mean, that was just sort of, maybe there's the political backdrop to that as well. Look, I came up here and, you know, I was my own person, and I didn't, you know, I would get abuse in the stadium and I'd give it back. And people didn't like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For what it's worth, Coisty said he'd batter you. Anyway,
He probably would. He'd fall on me.
I've got to mention Dunfermline, a club very close to my heart. I had 2 spells there who I thought I'd manage them at some point, but it never ever came up. I never was in for it, or it was the timing was always wrong. Is it a bigger club than you realised, and what do you want to achieve? What's your ambitions for Dunfermline? The obvious one, obviously, but is it a bigger club than you thought?
No, because obviously I played against Dunfermline, and I actually played against Dunfermline in, it was either 2 or 3 cup finals. So I knew they were a big club, I knew they had big support, and obviously I'd been to the stadium numerous times. The idea is to galvanise it, stabilise it, and then take them up, and then, you know, sort of try and be a consistent team in the Premier League. That's the plan. We're not going to. I would doubt it's not going to happen overnight, but we're making, you know, good progress.
It seems you've actually got. It seems from the outside there are a lot of young players, and it seems to be a year on. Maybe if you had 2 or 3 experience, you'll be right up one of the favourites. I thought.
Look, you know, Collie, teams in the Championship, they lack consistency. If you were a betting man, the last league you would want to bet on is the Scottish Championship.
Tell me about
honestly.
it. Yeah.
So the two most consistent teams are quite clearly St Johnstone and Partick Thistle. That's going to be a real interesting run-in. Teams will have a say in it, like Ayr United, Arbroath, ourselves, Wraith, Morton. Everyone can beat everyone on any given day.
Oh, absolutely.
So we go from like beating Hibs and beating St Johnstone away to, you know, not turning up on Saturday with surgery, and it pulls your hair out. But that's, I've got to find I've got to find that consistency with the players. And once I think I'll get there, I think we'll have a good couple of years ahead of us. I've got a great owner. I think that's half the battle when you're managing.
It's really important, with people above you.
And I've got good staff, and the support have been brilliant. So I'm really, really happy in what I'm doing at the minute. Really enjoying it.
Many games have you done as a manager?
I've done over 600 now.
600?
600 plus, so it's not bad.
How many have you done?
I'm 42 short of 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Now a quick fire round before.
Is it important to you to get there?
Yeah, but I don't want to take a job for the sake of me getting to 42.
No, I get that.
But you know, you say what happened at Celtic really hurt you, and with your experience, you know yourself it shouldn't. But see what happened at Thistle?
After
we played Rangers, it really affected me. I'm over it now, but it was really, really tough.
Yeah.
You know, and you do need that edge, and you do need that drive. I'm selling those driven as I was in 1997 when I started, but you still need it. You know, and that really affected me, just as you were saying. Listen, I've got a quick fire round before the last couple of questions.
Okay.
Quick fire round. This is, you can't say your son, and you can't say anything about personal life.
Right.
Football. Proudest achievement. I want to write these down to keep them.
Probably winning my first league title with Celtic as a manager.
Best player played with?
Henrik Larsson.
I'd already written that out. Best player managed?
Virgil van Dijk.
Oh, of course. What did you sign up for?
€2 million.
2 million, my God.
There's a few there, like Hooper was brilliant.
Yeah.
Frimpong was, you know.
I think Van Dijk.
Yeah, he's got to be, hasn't he?
Oh, man.
Wanyama was good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
John McGinn, you know.
Yeah,
I've managed some great players.
Yeah. Obviously, you had a horrid time recently with your beloved dad, Jerry, so I'm not including him as this. This is just football. Biggest influence, and I would imagine obviously it was your father, but biggest influence as a player and then as a manager?
Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
Martin O'Neill.
Martin O'Neill for both. High praise. Ambitions left. Remember a lot of Dunfermline fans will be watching this.
No, I do. I want to manage Dunfermline in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I want to win a trophy. I want to win that trophy.
Yeah. I played in the first game Dunfermline had back in the Premier League, the first time they'd ever been in the Premier League.
What year was
that? Oh God, 1987.
Right.
Drew 3 each with Hibs, there was 18,000 there.
Aye.
So that's what you can...
Well,
you'll not get 18,000.
I mean, the capacity at the minute I think is about 10,700, 11,000, something like that. So when we played Hibs there, with 10,500,
Aye.
which is brilliant. I know like Hibs bought a few, but it was just a perfect storm. You know, there's a lot of Habies live in Dunfermline, but the atmosphere, it was a proper football tie as well.
Nobody can tell me, and I've said it for many years, look at what Falkirk are doing now, Dunfermline, Falkirk. Nobody can tell me your Motherwell, Kilmarnocks, these teams are bigger clubs.
No, they're not.
They're not. They've
They're
done
not.
better recently.
Yeah, they have, yeah.
No, but they're not
And
bigger clubs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I look at Motherwell and, you know, what they're doing this year is tremendous.
Yeah.
You know, they're good, they are good clubs, you know, but there's a bigger fan base, I think, at Dunfermline if you can get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, last question. And this is something that I believe. So you're 40 caps, as a player 13 major honours, as a manager 12 major honours, maybe 13, I don't know. And I'm not blowing smoke out your ass, but in my opinion, and I've said this to other people when you're not there, you don't get anywhere near the credit you deserve for this type of career. If you agree with that, why do you think that is?
Just maybe the public perception. I'm really proud of what I've done, really, of what I've achieved. I think there's more to come from me. I don't listen to the naysayers and the doom-mongers because they've never got anywhere near what I've done in my footballing career. They may have done something else in their own life, but I don't comment on them. I have so much enjoyment of what I do. Coley, football gives us so much pleasure. It drives us mental sometimes as well, as you know. But you know, the memories and the experiences that I've had, you know, far outweigh any negativity. I can take that. That's all you have now is memories. But I was there. I did it. I set myself goals and I achieved them all. But I want more. You know, because I've still got the energy and the hunger to do that. But I work with some great people. You know, we've talked about Martin a lot. I've worked with Gordon Strachan. If you look at his career, amazing. So they were great role models for me.
Well, Neil Francis Lennon, a top man. By the way, Northern Ireland Personality of the Year in 2001. I didn't even ask about that.
Yeah, they were a bit short then, Peter.
Anyway, I would say it's safe to say I think you're a legend of football and a thoroughly decent person.
Thanks very much, Coley. Really enjoyed that. Well done, mate.
Thank you, gents. That was brilliant.